Hello, and thank you for joining us on this Friday afternoon. I'm Hoyt in for Journey Taylor, who we have given a well-deserved vacation here on the last Friday show of 2023. Let's get you caught up on these headlines. We've got turmoil in the GOP presidential race. The latest fallout after another state kicks Donald Trump off their ballot, and Nikki Haley is forced to go on the defensive. Plus, prosecutors in Pulaski County are teaming up with grassroots groups to help combat youth crime and violence. We're going to hear how their plans work. That's coming up. And some of the people who answer the call when we need help say they feel left out with a new law designed to help them. We'll analyze the gap in coverage between public and private safety workers. And meteorologist Nathan Scott is here. Nathan, we got the good kind of snow today, didn't we? Not the kind that makes pretty pictures and not messy roads, right?
Yes, we did, Rolly, but the Little Rock Airport did not see anything, so the snowless streak at Little Rock continues. We're up to 372 days now since our last trace of snowfall. But Cabot, you had some flakes flying around. The big winners, I guess you could say, were located into north and northeast Arkansas as expected. Here's a beautiful dusting of snow on the trees and the grass. Melbourne, that by Genevieve Carter, and also another picture from Izard County. We've got this one from Hope Cooper, a nice little dusting to coating of snow in that part of the state. The higher elevations, the mountainous areas, that's where the temperatures were cold enough, not only at cloud level, but also at the surface for that snow to stick. We're pretty much done with the chance of snow here in central Arkansas, but the clouds will stick around, and it's chilly out there. 37 right now in Clinton, 43 in Arkadelphia, more sunshine down to the south. The last bit of light precipitation is still moving through far eastern parts of Arkansas, but if you're going to be out and about, make sure you bundle up, because here's what it feels like out there with the chilly temperatures and still that breeze, which is biting. It feels like 34 in the capital city, feels like 32 in Russellville, feels like 31 in Clinton. Here's what you can expect today. Temperatures pretty much holding steady, only climbing up into the low to mid 40s. But I am talking about a significant warm up going into the weekend. More on those numbers coming up.
All right, Nathan, thank you. Former President Donald Trump facing a ballot battle on another front. Maine joined Colorado in saying the GOP frontrunner should be barred from the primary ballot because of his actions on January 6th. As Nicole Skanger explains, it puts more pressure on the U.S. Supreme Court to step in.
Nearly 3 years after the January 6th attack on the U.S. Capitol, Maine's Democratic Secretary of State has banned Donald Trump from the state's primary ballot.
I am mindful that no Secretary of State has ever deprived a presidential candidate of ballot access. And I'm also mindful that no presidential candidate has ever engaged in insurrection.
Shenna Bellows, issuing a judgment in response to a voter complaint, says her 34-page decision is based on the former president's actions before and after the deadly riot.
I was in no way influenced by my political affiliation or personal beliefs.
Trump's campaign promised an appeal, and his spokesman called Bellows a virulent leftist and a hyper-partisan Biden-supporting Democrat. Maine's decision adds to Trump's legal challenges based on the 14th Amendment. Last week, Colorado's Supreme Court disqualified Trump from seeking the presidency because he engaged in an insurrection.
The Colorado case was a major development in this area, and Maine would then follow along suit. I think we might see other states follow on board.
Thursday, California joined Michigan and Minnesota declining to remove Trump's name. There are challenges filed in more than a dozen states.
We really need a decision from the United States Supreme Court to determine whether or not Donald Trump is qualified to run for and hold the presidency.
As the appeals process plays out, both Colorado and Maine have temporarily put their decisions on hold, which means Trump remains on the ballots in those states for now. Nicole Skanger, CBS News, Washington.
The fighting in Gaza is now sparking a deadly reaction in northern Israel. Israel Defense Forces have been trading blows with Lebanese militants from Hezbollah, and now they fear that area near the northern border could become a second front in the war. Israeli airstrikes killed dozens of Palestinians yesterday. That's according to the Hamas-run Ministry of Health. And many Palestinians in that territory say they've nowhere to go, with Israeli strikes coming at both ends of the Gaza Strip. In Tel Aviv, voices in the minority right now are trying to raise their calls for a ceasefire, but they come at the same time as protesters and families in Jerusalem demand the return of hostages at any price.
We demand bring them back home.
Any means necessary.
Any means. For us, yes.
Advocates for a ceasefire say that it could give those hostages a chance to return home and also de-escalate the situation as it grows between American-backed forces and Iranian-backed forces across the entire region. A former Asylum Springs police officer might never be able to work in law enforcement again after prosecutors say his conduct forced them to dismiss more than a dozen cases. Michael Anderson is accused of an inappropriate relationship with a confidential informant, and prosecutors decided to drop charges in 20 of his cases, most of them drug cases. And now Asylum Springs Department is asking the State Commission on Law Enforcement Standards to decertify Anderson when it meets next month. New at noon, that stabbing over the weekend in Jacksonville that sent 4 teenagers to the hospital. Well, police now have a suspect and they need help tracking him down. 16-year-old Bryce Deshaun Flint should be considered armed and dangerous. We are naming him and showing his image here because police say he will be charged as an adult when they arrest him. The teens, the victims between the ages of 13 and 15, police say are now all out of the hospital. And prosecutors based here in Little Rock are trying a new approach to break a cycle of youth violence and reduce crime. The 6th Circuit Prosecuting Attorney's Office now working with several community organizations on their program. It comes after 32 people under the age of 18 have either been charged with or been victims of homicides this year. Casey Beard is the Juvenile Division Chief at the prosecutor's office, and she says it's better to be proactive than reactive when it comes to addressing youth crime.
It is about trying to rebuild and help. I mean, people and communities heal people. Jails do not heal people. Prisons do not heal people. And while that is a necessary evil, it is not what we have to stop at.
The Office of Prosecutor Will Jones, they partnered with the Jacksonville School District, North Pulaski, as well as groups 100 Families, Mothers of Black Sons, and some others, all to address problems head on. They hope to expand the project around the state. Starting next week, a new law will expand mental health care for public safety employees. Now, cities or fire departments will have to cover counseling for first responders who go through a traumatic event while on duty. But T311's Sarah Hobakowitz finds that certain paramedics are being left out.
Scott Gann has spent nearly 30 years working as a first responder, as a firefighter, in law enforcement, and most recently, a paramedic.
I actually retired out of EMS because of my mental health. There's a reason that we have such a shortage on people, services, and resources.
So when a new law passed expanding mental health resources for public safety employees, he was excited until he read the fine print that it didn't include paramedics.
If you're forgotten about, how are we ever going to be taken care of? Except I don't know anyone who's ever said if they called 911, they wouldn't expect an ambulance to come.
Act 537 goes into effect next week, helping thousands. The law requires public employers to cover mental health counseling for first responders after a traumatic event on duty. Representative Carlton Wing sponsored the bipartisan bill.
Paramedics, most of them by far work for private industry, whereas our police and fire work for the government. So what we can do within government is be able to help take care of these first responders in that way.
In Arkansas, over 60% of EMS services are privately owned. However, Wing hopes this bill can help set a framework for the remaining public medical responders down the line.
This is not just the right thing to do emotionally. This is the right thing to do financially. When we lose one of them prematurely, either by leaving the field or otherwise, it's a loss for the entire community.
And John Wilkerson with the Arkansas Municipal League has been working with lawmakers and cities to make sure mental health resources stick around beyond the initial one-year trial.
The bill itself for the next year will work with it, and then in 25 we'll have something even better, and in 26 and 27 we'll have something long-lasting for the mental health of our first responders.
As some paramedics hope for further advocacy for their own health care.
I'm not taking anything away from firefighters. I'm not taking anything away from law enforcement officers or correctional officers, any of them. We all need it. All I'm asking for is to be included as well.
Sarah Hobakowitz reporting for us there. The FDA researching whether to change the way your food labels look. Coming up, why health advocates want easy-to-read information alerting shoppers of what they call unhealthy ingredients. And Nathan?
The can't be clouds will linger across the region most of our Friday, but we are talking about sunshine returning, warmer temperatures this weekend. However, winter weather could be on the horizon once again as we get into the start of 2024. I'll let you know what I'm looking at coming up.